In the US alone, there were over 35 million cars and trucks recalled in 2023. My guest today went from a Marine serving our country to the CEO of a growing tech company serving the automotive industry. Ryan Maher grew up in the family car business and always had the mindset of solving problems. Today, you'll discover why he started BizzyCar, what he sees coming for the industry around recalls, and how you can fill more bays. Ryan, welcome to the Fixed Ops Mastermind.
Great being with you. Thanks, Dave.
It's great to have you here. Give everybody a quick intro to you for those that don't know you, and then we'll get straight to the wisdom.
My name's Ryan Maher. I'm the founder and CEO of BizzyCar. I'm also a third generation car dealer. My grandfather got started in the business after World War II, started as a partnership in a Volkswagen distributorship. The family grew it to almost 20 rooftops, and now the third generation today. My brother runs the show while I'm off being a startup technology entrepreneur in the recall space. And as you mentioned, other than 5 years in the Marine Corps, I've been doing this my whole life. So love the auto industry, but really love the fixed ops side of it.
That's the best side of the house. We all know that.
I call it it's the profit maker. So it's where the real professionals play, right?
That's right. The technicians are the only people in a dealership who are actually producing revenue, right? Everybody else in that dealership is an expense.
Yeah, you're selling. I mean, you're trying to take a product and get it out there. But yeah, I mean, if you were in an independent repair shop, if you were these technicians are true, almost like tiny little entrepreneurs, right? They're out
Yeah.
there and turning wrenches and building and creating real value. So couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, excellent. So this show is broken up into three segments, and this week we've got segment one is the recall problem, segment two, approach and impact, and segment three, industry insights and future outlook. If everybody's ready, we'll get into it. Segment one, uh, Ryan, can you tell us about your background in the automotive industry and what led you to start BizzyCar?
Yeah. So I always loved growing up playing with Legos, and I loved working with my hands, and I loved finding how things worked, how you take stuff apart and put it back together. So I'd build the Lego set the first time, and then the real fun was to deconstruct it and see if I could do it without the instructions. So I got my start, if you will, in the learning to work on cars when I was a little kid, and then as I got older, I'd be spending time with my grandfather, who was a car dealer. We'd be doing projects in his basement, whether we were doing woodworking projects or learning about cars, and then eventually washing cars and kind of working my way up through the fixed ops side. So I spent a lot of summers in St. Louis, where it's 100 degrees, inside the service department,
Yeah.
learning those jobs before going into the military. It's really incredible how complex and what the intricate dance is between technicians, advisors. We always forget about the parts folks, the parts
Mhm.
counterman, the parts manager, the parts department, huge profit center inside of a store. And growing up in that side of it and seeing it from that perspective
Mhm.
really makes, for a stronger dealer owner later in life. So
Absolutely.
I kind of grew up in that space. Fast forward, college and the Marine Corps, and I came back and was working in our stores. And on a Saturday, this is how the genesis of BizzyCar occurred. My brother and I were sitting there, and we got an email from one of our OEMs telling us we had a recall problem. A real problem, right?
Yeah.
And we were at the time, this is 5 years ago, we were dealing with Takata airbags.
Oh
Huge,
yeah.
huge impact in
Man.
the industry, right?
Mhm.
And painful. Everybody was so tired of hearing about Takata. And and I said, why would they send this email on a Saturday, right? They want to bury it.
Yep.
And we were in the store, right? Owners, we work, a few Saturdays a month, got a shared hardship, right? And on a whim, we went out and started looking for used cars on other dealership websites.
Yep.
So we started going out and saying, "Hey, can we find some of these recalls?" And no joke, our first month of doing this, we made $40,000. It was just ridiculous that a lot of these vehicles were just sitting there, and
Yeah.
we said, "Well, we'll go out and we'll pick them up." In some cases, for franchise dealers, they'd bring us the cars, and
Yep.
that's how BizzyCar was born. Was what we call B2B, business to business recall service, and now we've 5 years later we've exploded, and tremendous growth. But it really just started with buying the team lunch on a Saturday and trying to solve a problem.
This segment is brought to you by PartsEdge. Your parts department is the backbone of your dealership and is responsible for nearly half of your total profits, according to NADA. Our system works within your DMS for a hybrid approach that combines the precision of automation with the nuanced decision making of parts experts. That's when opportunities come around, though, right? When your eyes are open to there's a problem and what can we do to solve that problem.
Yeah, 100%. We actually didn't know, Dave, what the size of the problem was. I didn't, as a car
Yep.
dealer, I didn't know that. So, this is 2018, 2019. Then COVID hit, right? And we were
Yeah.
desperately trying to keep the wrenches turning
Hmm.
for our techs. We don't, technicians are like unicorns. You don't want to let them go,
Yep.
because of the pandemic. One thing, but keeping those technicians was another. So we were doing a ton of recall work, right? When
Hmm.
when COVID was really at peak, and we learned then, hey, this is a huge pain point.
Hmm.
70 million cars on the road today with an open recall. That's one out of four vehicles,
Wow.
and recalls pay out at over 70% gross margin to the dealers.
Yep.
The thing is that nobody likes dealing with this because it's a very manual process, right? In
Right.
my stores, I have four people that have to touch this. I
Hmm.
usually have my BDC manager, service advisor, parts manager, and then service manager. So, and any one of those four people are out of sync,
Right.
this process falls on its head. And what we've really been able to do inside of our dealership organization, super process driven,
Yep.
right? Like what you execute this step, then you go to the next step, then you go to the next step. And so that's how we built BizzyCar. We identified the pain point
Hmm.
and said, what process can we build to solve that pain?
Yeah, that's awesome. And I was still in a store in 2019, and I took two of
Where
my
were you?
porters. What's that?
Where were you?
I was at it was a Prime store at the
Okay,
time before
sure.
Prime got sold back to IRA. Um, and I took two of my porters and gave them a rental car and said, just go to every used car dealer on this street and take pictures of the VINs of of the
100%.
Fords that are there. Uh, and we just took all those. They texted them back to us, and we ran them and said, "Yep, this one. See if they'll let you take it." And those used car dealers were more than happy to let us take it and do free work on the car, so they could tell a customer, "Hey, we had the recall fixed for you."
I mean, that's literally the business model. What the only difference is we did that, and then we said, "Hey, other dealers probably want to do it. Can we scale it? Can we
Yeah.
sell it?"
Yep.
And the shocking thing is that who's going to say no to free recall work?
Right.
Yeah, so you'd be surprised. There are, there's a handful of some independent dealers out there, because we don't just work
Yep.
with franchise dealers. We work with over 50,000 dealers throughout the United States and Canada now.
Wow.
Huge numbers.
Yeah.
And every once in a while we'll get a nasty phone call, or somebody will chase us. It happens, right? They just 9 times out of 10 they just don't understand what we're trying to do.
Right. Right.
Um, but yeah, it's free. It's free. Why would you say no to free work?
Yep, absolutely, and just another benefit to whatever customer is going to be walking onto your lot, right? To be able to tell them that you took care of a safety recall that independent dealer at this point doesn't have to do. So,
One less piece of paperwork to sign, right?
yep, exactly. And so, How are you using AI inside of BizzyCar to address this issue of recalls?
Yeah, great. So love talking about AI. In the auto industry, I was at NADA last year, and everybody's trying to be AI in
Yeah.
auto. And I will be really the first to tell you, we are using AI in our platform, really, really using it.
Yep.
But we're not trying to be the AI solution for it.
Sure.
There's tons of now hundreds of solutions out there
Yep.
that they're doing that. We're also not trying to reinvent the wheel. So candidly, we said who's the best at this? It's Microsoft, it's Amazon. We're integrated with both, and then we've taken our models and made them customized for the industry. So how do we leverage AI?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing that we do is we're fully integrated with the OEMs. We are the only software vendor that I'm aware of that is getting a live recall data feed, a daily recall feed from almost every OEM on the planet now.
Wow.
All the big ones, right? We're not doing like
Yep.
Ferrari,
Yeah. Yeah.
but Ford, GM, Stellantis, Nissan. These are all our customers, and we get hundreds of millions of data points per night. So that's the first step is you got to know which vehicles have recalls. Now what we do, what makes us unique is we find these cars. And that's where we harness the power of AI. We go out there and we have a customized AI solution in our platform that helps us find these cars, and then, and this is the really important piece, we're not just alerting the customers that they have a problem, right? What's the
Yep.
traditional model for recall? You get a letter in the mail,
Yeah.
right? And then
Get
you got
that
to,
orange postcard.
oh, it's brutal, right? It's got the red stripe on
Oh
it,
yeah.
and it's like important recall information, and the customers are just pissed, right? Like
Hmm.
they got to call the dealership, they are waiting on hold, or it's not a great experience.
Yep.
So we said, how do we overcome this? How do we make this process better? How do we create a better customer experience?
Hmm.
So we reach out to the customer, text, email, WhatsApp, all digitally.
Yeah.
And we don't force the customer to go to your website or to call. We let
Mhm.
you use AI to schedule your appointment right then and there. And because our AI is fully DMS integrated. It's fully service scheduler integrated.
Mm.
We are fully integrated into the parts supply chain at the OEM and at the DMS. So we're remember those four people I talked about that are
Yep.
in my stores? We're making their lives so much easier because we're solving those problems for them. So
Right.
do I have parts available? Do I have remedy available? Do I have
Yep.
bay availability?
Yeah.
You don't even have to think, and it's in real time, right? Like we're
Yep.
we're talking to the customer with our AI solution,
Hmm.
and we're offering up the right times, the right locations. We're offering mobile repair, right? Service
Mm.
valet, all
Big.
of it's integrated into our platform. And if you give a great customer experience, guess what? The customer will spend more money when they
Yeah.
come to the store. So think of recalls as a hook
Yeah.
to bring the customer back to your store
Yep.
and retain them,
Yeah.
which is what we really want to do.
The recalls are your loss leader, except they're not a loss leader.
I
Right.
talked to dealers. I was literally on a demo this morning where I asked the dealer, what do you pay to bring a customer in for service? He didn't know. So we talk about this a lot, Dave, is what is your cost per appointment? So we call that
Yep.
CPA.
Yep.
My brother, who runs a bunch of stores, he absolutely knows what it costs to sell a new car.
Yeah.
Right? The customer acquisition cost. He knows what
Right.
his radio, his television, his
Hmm.
print, his Facebook ads. You take all that up and add it all up, it's like $1,000 a car.
Yep.
I think the national average is like 690. But nobody knows what the true cost is to bring a customer in for service.
No.
And so you have all these big service retention companies out there they're like, oh, well, we can get it down to like $5 a mailer or $3 a mailer. But you're not really looking at what the true cost to bring that customer in. We have solved that, right? And we've really driven that price down. We are revolutionizing you called it the loss leader, and I
Yep.
think that's a great way to describe it. You don't have to give away the oil change anymore, right?
Right.
If I can
Mhm.
text Susie customer and tell her she has a recall, she's going to get that oil change taken care of when she comes in. Now we got to be really
Mhm.
careful. There's laws against we can't upsell the customer through a
Off a
recall. We're
recall.
very
Right. Yeah.
yeah, we're
Mhm.
super sensitive to that, very compliant.
Yep.
But if the customer asks, of course we want to delight them. So
Yeah.
we make sure that happens.
Yeah, that's excellent, and just removing all of the other friction points that a customer has, right? Like you said, they either get a letter that says from Ford that says you have a recall, or some other company that says you have a recall, and that's all that is work for them, right? That
100%.
you just added a task to their day.
Aggravation, frustration, friction, and if the customer, we have some dealers where the customer just has bad experience, right? And
Yep.
we don't we want to reduce all that.
Yeah, that's excellent. Um, why are recalls such a critical aspect of the industry, and how has the landscape changed in recent years?
So it's gotten more complicated, right? The nobody wants to have recalls. It's not something that the manufacturers want, right? That's expensive for them. It hurts their
Hmm.
profit. Consumers don't want to have an extra maintenance or service appointment scheduled. So in an idealized world, there are no recalls. That being said, these cars are super complicated today. You
Yeah,
should see the amount of electrical issues that we deal with in recalls now on a monthly and quarterly basis.
yeah,
So what we're seeing is we're seeing just a lot more complications with BEVs, right? Battery electric vehicles,
yep,
around their electrical systems, their electrical architecture, and it's easy to be like, oh, well, in the next few years, we'll just beam an update to a car. No, you're not. Like,
no,
sure, that will be a part of the solution,
yep,
but how do I do that on an environmental control system? Or how do I adjust the seatbelt tensioner if we pass an update? So the best analogy I've ever heard about like what goes on with recalls is these cars have so many more complex parts. It's not just the sheer volume of the parts,
yep,
but it's the parts that we're putting on these cars, and they have to be in this like perfect symphony orchestra,
yeah,
and it's just not the reality, right? Cars are driving 60, 70 miles an hour on the highway, they hit potholes, stuff happens.
right,
And so the state of the recalls in our industry is it's it's steadily growing, right? Over time, we would love to see that come down through tools like AI and over the air updates and whatnot. It should be easier to get these recalls repaired, but
hmm,
we're easier too, right? We're making this really a simplified process to get your recall repaired. Use our mobile technician app. Use our service valet app. Those customer convenience items don't stop at just communicating with the customer. They also are on solution, right?
right,
On delivering that solution. And what we see with the industry is I think you're going to continue to see between 28 and 30 plus million recalls a year. SAR volume, are back up, right? I saw a report from Cox the other day that we're going to end the year about 16 and a half, 17 million cars. Like we're starting to see pre-pandemic numbers again.
right,
And I just think as car manufacturers adopt all these new features in these cars, I mean,
right.
it, air conditioned seats, heated seats, lumbar support. There's so much stuff that can go wrong. So I think you're going to see a continued growth of recalls in the coming years.
Hmm. Yeah, and certainly over the air, you're not ever going to get to the point where a car is always fixed through an over the air update, and your point about the abuse that car takes. I used to always use the analogy for customers. They would be like, "Well, why did that break?" I would say, "Well, take your refrigerator and drag it behind your car for 30,000 miles, and tell me how well your refrigerator works after that." Right?
In the
But your car,
snow, in the sleet, in the
yeah,
salt air, yeah, it's these are complicated machines that have to deal with environmental considerations, human factors,
Yep.
all kinds of other stuff that happens.
Exactly. They're still a mechanical and electrical thing put together by human beings, right? So
That's
there's
it.
going to be problems. It's amazing that they have as few problems as they have, considering what they go through.
Totally. And honestly, all we're trying to do is, we're problem solvers, right? I take this
Yep.
back from my time as a young Marine. There, it's all about identifying what the problem is, orienting around a solution, and then how fast can you fix it.
Right.
And what we're trying to do is just fix problems fast here at BizzyCar. I think the industry, a lot of pressure from folks like Tesla, and Rivian. I mean, they're really good at problem solving,
Yeah.
and instead of just like waxing poetic on a lot of this, they solve the problems. and
Yeah.
and we've taken a page out of their book and said, okay, what can we do to, there's clearly a recall problem. What can we do to help solve that problem?
Yeah. I love the approach. And that takes us into segment 2, which is approach and impact. This segment is brought to you by Automotive Warranty Network Incorporated, family owned and operated claims management service based out of Denver, Colorado. They currently process more than 100 million in warranty per month. How does BizzyCar's technology streamline the recall and mobile process for dealerships and manufacturers? And I know you went into some of that earlier, but what's the rest of the secret sauce there?
Yeah, so we think of the recall process as four steps, right? You have to identify which vehicles have recalls. So you have to conduct outreach, you have to schedule, and then you have to provide a solution at the dealership to help solve it, right?
Mhm.
So let's talk first about identify. You got to be integrated with the OEM, not just on who has a recall, but you got to know what parts are available.
Right.
You also have to know where the cars are, and you have to have ownership information on those cars. This is a hard problem.
Yeah.
And it's not just as simple as reaching into the dealer's DMS and mining that. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
Or going after DMV records and sending letters. That's been happening for 30, 40 years. So we had to come
Yeah.
up with an innovative solution and approach to make that happen. Step 2, the outreach needs to be where you got to meet the consumer. 99% of our outreach begins with a text message. You got to get in front of the device where the consumer is. They can see that text. And then like I'm doing a podcast with you right now, right? My phone probably has gotten, we had an election, right? So I'm probably got a bunch of text messages today from people.
Yep.
I can respond to those message, asynchronously, right? I can respond later.
Yep.
Well, if you're just relying on a human in your store to respond back, what happens if it's 9 o'clock tonight? You got to have that AI solution that's
Yeah.
deeply integrated to be able to respond asynchronously, meaning when the customer is ready.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to have that AI trained on all the potential responses. We're multilingual. We do French, Spanish, and English.
Oh,
We
that's
do
great.
operate in Canada, so you got to understand the different laws and regulations that apply to that.
Yep.
Then you have to integrate it in the scheduling system. So we're fully integrated into CDK, fully integrated into DealerTrack, fully integrated into Xtime, and so on and so on. All the major players, you got to have that integration. And then finally, you have to provide tools to the dealer. So our fastest growing product is actually mobile solutions. How do you give tools to the dealers to solve that recall out in the field or out in the customer driveway or out on
Mm-hmm.
the other dealer's lot?
Yep.
And I've been, shocked at the take rate from our Ford dealers, from our Nissan dealers, from our GM dealers, et cetera, that are doing mobile. They just didn't have the app. They didn't have the
Yeah.
scheduling system to provide mobile.
Yep.
String all these four things together, and that's how you create that ultimate customer experience.
That is an excellent roadmap there.
A lot of
Um,
pieces, right?
there are a lot of pieces, and I, I'm running through my head of everything that I used to go through to try and get people in for recalls.
Yeah,
um,
probably a lot of paperwork and direct mail and doing a lot of this, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of that. Of the, I mean, you talked about the DMV records, and like you get constantly getting postcards back that, that's not a person anymore. Or worse, you send it out and the person doesn't live there or whatever, and that card just gets thrown away. And now you don't even know. Maybe you mail that again 3 or 4 times. Now you've just thrown money out the window.
We think the OEMs are wasting a couple $100 million a year using direct mail.
Wow.
The benefit of text is a lot of times people will tell you, "Hey, I no longer own that car anymore."
Yeah.
Or "Hey, I do own the car." You're saying, being a 18-year-old son, okay, he's awake. He drives that car now, right? And
Hmm.
he lives in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the amount of times that we get responses back from
Yeah.
consumers that are like, "Hey, thanks for letting me know. Let me give you the phone number of the person who has that car now." And you're like, "Oh my God, this is great." There's like, these are strangers, right? But
Yeah.
people will tell you their life story if they trust you.
Yeah. And that's because it's easy, right? They can take the device that they have with them all the time and just give a quick answer. Right. It's not like when they got that postcard and said, if you don't own this vehicle anymore, or or whatever, please call this number. Who's calling that number?
Nobody wants to
Nobody.
call the dealership, go through a phone tree, wait on hold. I mean, I will tell you, I'm a dealer, right? And it blows my mind when I am calling some of my customers. I always am curious what others are doing.
Yeah.
And I will sit on hold 5, 10, 15 minutes. And even some of these like AI voice things, it's just you're just waiting, right? You're waiting to get to the advisor.
Yeah.
And if you call during the, the morning rush
Oh
or the
yeah.
lunch rush, like good
Yep.
luck, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a tough, we're trying to reduce that.
Yeah. Well, and then you get the person that does get to the advisor and they're like, hey, I got this recall notice, but I don't own the car anymore. And the advisor's like, okay.
And they don't
He doesn't
update
know
the
what to do with that.
records, right? And then and here the other problem, Dave, is you have this asymmetric information. So the dealer has a different set of information than like the recall retention company that's historically been doing this, which is
Yep.
different than the OEM. It's a mess.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we're stringing it all together. We're connected to everybody. We have
Hmm.
65,000 integration partners on our platform today and
Wow.
growing. So think about the years it's taken us to build those partnerships.
Yeah.
And it can be anything from, a small independent store to a fleet company that has a 500,000 vehicles. So what we're doing, what our platform is doing is we're connecting everything that's never been connected before.
Which is desperately needed in this industry. Not just around recalls in a bunch of other areas too, but
That's right. It's happened in other industries. It's just time to be happening in automotive.
absolutely. Ryan, can you share a success story that demonstrates the impact of your solution?
Yeah. So one of my favorite dealer groups that we talk about. Do you know the Tasca Group in
Absolutely.
Rhode Island? Yeah,
Yep.
Bob Tasca, great partner of ours. Drives the funny car and the
Yeah.
in the auto racing world. Uh, there are some customers of his that we have brought back to his stores that haven't been there in over 3 years. So
Wow.
we that's one of my favorites. Like I can talk about profit and all of our stores are getting 4, 5, 6 to 1 ROI on what
Mhm.
they pay us. Some stores are making millions a year on it's not just the recalls, it's the upsell.
Sure.
That's great. I'm really focused now on retention.
Yeah.
How do I create a loyal base of customers for these dealers?
Yep.
So we'll pick on Bob. I can't talk about the publicly traded groups, and right. I wish I could, but because those are some scary, crazy numbers.
Yeah.
Um, but what we've seen in the Tasca group, and I think he's at 30 or 40 stores now, is DSLV, days since last visit.
Hmm.
And there are customers of his that we're averaging now over 700 days. So that customer has not been in that store in 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years since their last visit.
They're gone.
And back to our hook, right? Our recall hook analogy. I'm able to bring that customer back to the store, that
Hmm.
customer is now a retained customer, which is really important,
Yep.
right? As car dealers, what do? We want to sell cars.
Yeah.
Well, now that customer's in the store, or Tasca does mobile service, we send them out into the field, and we're able to complete those mobile repairs on site.
Yep.
So huge success story there. That actually helped us create a new product inside of our platform, and we're really focused on making sure we're going after those customers that have not been in there in years, because
Yeah.
those are really valuable gets.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because you said 700 days since they've been in the dealership, they're gone. They're not coming back.
They've defected.
That's not I didn't drive very much and don't need an oil change.
Right. That's I went to, mom and pop, or, quick lube this or whatever. Like,
Yep.
we should not be losing customers because of price, right? Like, I'm
Right.
never going to lose an oil change customer on price. In fact, franchise dealers are about 18% cheaper
Cheaper.
national average than express service.
Yep.
We lose them because of convenience.
Yes.
And one of the things, if we can make the scheduling process, the communication process, the parts are there. I
Yep.
can't I can't emphasize enough this, like, parts thing, how important it is to have the part in stock when the
Yep.
customer car is there. We make sure all that happens, and that's how you create the super loyal fan base,
Hmm.
like we've seen in the Tasca group.
Yeah. Well, are you going back to a restaurant that you go to and they go, well, we don't have any food today,
Yeah,
right?
it'd be great. The chef forgot to order the part. Like, we have cooks, right? Like, we
Yeah.
we we could cook the food, but we
Yeah.
didn't order the right part, the right food for this today. Then that's a great analogy. I'm going to steal that. That's a good one.
There you go. You can have that. What are some of the biggest challenges that dealerships are facing when it comes to managing recalls, and how are you guys helping them overcome?
Yeah, so number one is educating, a lot of some new folks in the industry on the value, the power of a recall.
Mhm.
Our ability to reach out to consumers without their consent, this is really, really valuable.
Yep.
I don't need a customer to be opted in to marketing with a recall, right? There's an
Yep.
exemption for TCPA, Telecommunications Consumer Privacy Act. If your vehicle is a safety recall, I can reach out to you.
Yeah.
So that has been a huge, like, education in the industry for these dealers.
Hmm.
Everybody should be doing this, right?
Right.
And the challenge that we've seen, and ignore COVID, Dave, like, you had COVID, then you had the supply chain disruption. Like, we've normalized off of that. So,
Right.
and everybody always talks about the technician shortage, and all these. I get it. If there's a pain point, you
Hmm.
got to just go solve it, right? Go. I talk to a lot of dealers out there, and they're not bragging, right? They don't have a technician issue because they pay their people the right way, they train their people the right way.
Yeah.
And we like to think of recalls as being a great opportunity to train and educate and communicate to your team, especially around mobile service. A lot of OEMs are trying to figure out the unit economics of mobile repair.
Yep.
How do we help them do that? Well, I can't make money doing oil changes at customer houses. It's
Right.
just, it doesn't pencil,
Yep.
right? But can I go out there and do a $400 recall and and do that mobily successfully and profitable? 100. I would do that all day, every day.
Sure would.
So it's guaranteed.
Yeah.
And that's the thing we've got to do, is we've got to get smarter and more efficient on how we're solving these problems. Let me
Hmm.
also tell you why I think mobile is so valuable. I am really thinking 3, 5, 7 years ahead. Like, EVs are here, right? Maybe the OEMs got over their skis the last few years on
Yep.
how fast the adoption was going to be, but this is happening, right? That we're not going to revert back to ICE being the predominant player.
Right.
So we've got to figure out how to service those customers. If I don't have an oil change, if I don't have that offer,
Yep.
what's my loss leader in 5 years?
Yeah.
We have to be ready as the industry evolves. And I would rather be ahead of this problem than behind it.
Yeah.
The analogy my dad always talks about is, and you've been in the industry a while. Remember express service back in the 90s?
Yeah.
Like,
I I was with Ford when they were introducing their quick lane. So
right, quick lane.
yeah.
That was a
Yep.
huge deal. And
Yep.
dealers were like up in arms. We don't do that here. We do main shop work. And I just remember I was a kid at the time, but my dad coming home and just being like trying to convince the service managers that this was valuable, like getting the customer, the muscle memory for the customer to come back to the dealer was,
Yes.
solving retention. I feel like mobile service and in some ways like service valet, pick up and drop off,
Hmm.
that's express service today.
Yeah.
And dealers don't love change, right? They're happy.
Really?
Yeah, who would have thought? Um, but I just feel very strongly that mobile is something that they're going to have to adapt to because
Yep.
all these other EV companies, Tesla, Rivian, that's the default for them is
Right.
mobile repair.
Yeah.
You're still always going to need the service department, a
Hmm.
physical service department, especially for getting the car up on a lift and whatever. But um, we have got to make these adjustments in our industry
Yep.
or people aren't going to be. I mean, what's the dealer service model look like in 20 years
Yeah.
if the customers aren't loyal and retained to us? Where they're going to go elsewhere.
Yep.
And it's time that we do that. Start with recalls. What a great way to build your mobile platform. I mean, there's some dealers I work with that have 10,000 vehicles in their PMA
Yeah.
that have a recall. I can show you where every one of them are located. Send that mobile truck out there and get them done.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. And that, if you extrapolate that out as they're going to those houses, right? That's an opportunity to now sell that mobile service to those customers, right? Yes, we
Totally.
came to your house for the recall, but I can also come to your house for, here's a whole list of everything I can do with your car parked in the driveway.
I'll give you a great example. I had a Korean OEM come on site to one of my stores, and they were watching my team go perform mobile service. And we went to a guy's condo. He was like a CPA or an accountant of some kind. And we went out, we did his recall. We ended up doing an oil change for him as well. And at the end, I pulled him aside and I said, "Hey, my name's Ryan Maher. I'm the dealer. I just curious what your feedback on this experience is?" And he looked me dead in the eye and he goes, "I will never come back to your store. This was so easy." And like the OEM folks were just like, "Oh my God,
Oh
this
no.
is real." And it was one of those aha moments, I think, where people are like, "Wait a second, I get my food delivered, I get my groceries delivered, I get all
Yes.
my furniture." That's the world we live in. If we
Yep.
don't meet the customer where they want to be met, they'll go elsewhere.
Hmm.
They'll defect to a non-franchise brand, a Tesla or used car or whatever, and
Yep.
they will have their needs met there.
Absolutely. It's we have become very adept at making it difficult for our customers to
We have,
to
haven't
do
we?
business. I commented on LinkedIn to somebody who put a post about advisors having to log into too many systems, and their argument was, well, but as a customer you have all these apps on your phone that you use that are all different every day. And I said, my response was, a customer doesn't go to Amazon and pick out a what they want to order and then go back to their bank and have to log into their bank to get a payment to then go back over to FedEx or UPS to get it shipped to them. They go to Amazon and click, in 2 clicks they can have whatever they want,
Yep.
right?
You
But we
gotta
make it
have
difficult.
that's patented by Amazon, by the way. I think a really good idea. But the idea of the single pane of glass is so critical. Let's talk in a few months. We got some stuff we're releasing at NADA. We're really focused on making things in the service department much more efficient.
Awesome.
There's a famous, I don't know if it's Eisenhower quote or but there's a famous military saying: amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics. And I heard that a lot when I was, young Marine. And I would say in the auto industry, you know, yeah, we got to sell cars, but that's table stakes.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to sell cars. The real professionals are talking fixed ops, and they're working pay plans. The amount of time we spend on variable ops pay plans is crazy, right? Like they're going to get a split deal and a mini, and there's a draw and a bonus, and it's like, give me a break. Like, go sell the freaking car. But we don't take the same time and attention and care. And every time a dealer tells me they have a tech problem, the first question I ask them is, what's your pay plan?
Yeah.
It's the first question. Because if I am not getting paid
Yeah.
for my value,
Yep.
I'm not going to work at your store. Don't tell me you have a tech problem. You got a pay plan problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's like the first place where we got to be looking as an industry, right? And everybody noticed it during COVID. You
Right.
start losing some really key people that are turning wrenches and fixing problems.
Yep.
You're screwed.
Yeah. That's for sure. And so you just mentioned that you've got some cool stuff that you're going to introduce at NADA. That will take us into segment 3, which is industry insights and future outlook. It was a great
Yeah.
segue that you did for me. I appreciate that. And so, how do you see recall management process evolving in the next 2 to 5 years, and what role do you see technology playing in that?
Yeah, so there's, depending on who you talk to, 17,000, 18,000 franchise dealers in the US, another 3,400 in Canada. Selfishly, we think BizzyCar should be in 90% of them, right? That, all joking aside, like, this is a product that should just exist in the industry. It
Hmm.
should be baked into the OEM portal or into the DMS. It's
Yep.
just, why do we not have an automated solution for reaching out, scheduling, checking for parts? Like, right, it should just be there. So
Right.
we want that to be us, obviously. But it doesn't stop there. I think there's a lot of really interesting, and without kind of, you know, overcooking this before we do our product releases, there's a lot of really good places where we need to gather better information about our
Hmm.
customers, hitting the customer at the right place at the right time,
Yeah.
integrating that information with other elements of the dealership sales process. I think is an interesting place to go. So
Hmm.
we really want to own the recall space.
Yep.
We think we have we're years ahead of anybody else in the space, and it's just time, right? Like, let's
Yeah.
just put this problem to bed, and then we'll start applying, our process and technology to mobile service or whatever it is that we're going to work on next, right?
Yep.
As far as recalls go, I think you're going to continue to see 28 to 30 million recalled vehicles per year. I think that's going to stay pretty steady for a while. As an industry, yeah, we'd love to be a part of the solution. Um, how do we identify these recalls earlier? So we're working with our OEM partners now at the safety office level to, how can we help? For people who don't know, there's investigations before
Hmm.
you issue a recall. It's actually takes months, right? There has to be, uh, our customers complaining about this. Is there something in the data that we're seeing? So it's not like the recall is like the last step
Right.
in the process. So we want to move upstream. We're curious what's going on there,
Hmm.
and see if we can be helpful. We're doing a lot of stuff with AI, Dave.
Yep.
I think we could do a lot more to help technicians be more efficient in their process, whether that's through mobile app or through tools we can give the technicians to help them be more efficient.
Yep.
People ask me, like, hey, what's the difference between a master tech and an apprentice or a junior tech who's getting in the industry? Everybody who's mechanically inclined within reason, they can go out and fix most problems if they know what the problem is, right? Like, if I told you, Dave, you're going to go and do, rotate the two front tires on a Nissan Altima. You may have never done it before, but if you're mechanically inclined, you could figure it out.
Yeah.
But if I told you to look at a car that was making a weird noise, right? It's the diag. That's
Yeah.
the difference between a
Yep.
master tech and an apprentice tech, or an A tech and a C tech, is they can look at something and they know what the problem is. I'm
Hmm.
really curious about how we can help in that space.
Mm.
Um, being able to run your diagnostic sooner, easier, more
Yeah.
efficiently. The sooner you can get people turning wrenches on the problem, I mean,
Yep.
that's how you really improve your efficiency rates inside your store. So there's a lot we want to do with recalls, and then there's a lot we want to do with improving the overall fixed ops experience.
Yep.
That's mostly in store
Yeah.
or at the OEM level.
Yep.
For the customer experience, let's use, I'm going to use your Amazon example. We think getting your vehicle in for service should be just like that. 2 clicks
Yeah.
and you're done, right? Um, we're 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 doing a lot to make that happen. Um, and we're obsessed about it. I mean, we
Yeah.
really obsess over how do you, if we can make recalls as simple as communicating through text,
Yep.
we think we can do this in a whole lot of other elements of the fixed ops department. We're also really doing a lot with parts. So I don't want to get over my skis on the parts stuff, but there's some really transformative things I think we can do um, in the parts department. Great profit center.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of vendors that are in the variable and fixed space, but very, very little attention has been paid to how do I improve the part. And I'm not talking about selling more parts. I'm
Hmm.
talking about integrating parts into the overall process of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that is definitely as much as fixed ops in general is neglected. Parts is really neglected.
Huge, right? And I
Yep.
think the biggest challenge is, I mean, every time that I go into, and I do some selling, right? Like our we have almost 100 employees now. I mean, we're adding 100 rooftops a month to our platform, which is
Wow.
crazy. We're growing fast.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest thing for us is I'll usually get to, if my team's tagging me in, we're usually stuck, right, at the GM or maybe the dealer principal level. And I typically know how the conversation's gonna go when the GM turns, hey, go get Fred, right? Go get Mike. Who's Mike? He's my service manager. That GM doesn't understand anything about fixed ops. It's a burden for him.
Right.
And I would love to figure out how to really educate
Yeah.
the non-fixed ops folks,
Yep.
things they should just know. If you don't know what fixed absorption is or efficiency or capacity settings, and then what ends up happening, right, is you have this GM, right, a lot of type A ego there, and you've got this service manager, sometimes a lot of like, I've been here 40 years, don't tell me,
Yep.
white, rice ain't white. And you just, they're gonna butt heads.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is if the GMs just had more knowledge about
Hmm.
what it is that this guy does over here,
Yeah.
how hard his job is,
Yep.
and if the service manager understood, like, hey, I'm a profit center, it's my job to, okay, well, there's a lot we can do here to improve this,
Yeah.
and I would love to be a part of that solution. I really, really believe that service managers, a really good FOD, fixed ops director,
Yep.
should be on par with any GM, right? He's basically the general manager of the service and parts department,
Yeah.
and that's the way we should be looking at this.
Yeah. I agree. I we can talk another time, but I have some ideas about how to how to help educate GMs. That is something that has stewed in my head for a bunch of years. Um, and so, Ryan, what advice would you give a dealership fixed ops manager that's looking to improve their recall completion rates?
Yeah, first thing we always talk to service managers about is, do you understand the problem, right? Do you know what the scope is? And I'll go in there sometimes and I'll turn on their BizzyCar dashboard, because these OEM portals are really complicated, right? If you have ever been inside, and I'm not going to name names, but if you log into some of these, there's like 200 links you could click on, all with like dashboards and programs. It's overwhelming.
Yep.
And all of the information is good, right?
Hmm.
There's a lot, if you really click into a lot of that stuff, there's good valuable information.
Yeah.
But the service managers, they just don't have time, right? They're putting out fires, they're dealing with customer issues, they're dealing with hiring and staffing issues. And the advice that I usually start out with service managers is, do you know what the recall problem is in your backyard? And do you know how valuable this is from a not just gross profit perspective, but
Hmm.
a customer retention perspective?
Yeah.
If I can bring customers, let's assume that I just bring one customer back per day. It's a lost soul, right? A churned customer. One per day. That's it. 20 days. Let's just say 20 days a month. That's 240 customers that haven't been in your store in years.
Hmm.
You should be, talking to your general manager about this. Somebody go get a hold of this guy and sell them a car. I mean, if you did nothing but just converted 10%, that's two extra cars a month.
Yeah.
And that's bananas. I mean, that is huge opportunity. And I'm being really conservative
Hmm.
and generous in these numbers here. Like you should really be maximizing. And I should be looking at my schedule for the day
Hmm.
and say, hey, I got a BizzyCar recall coming in. This customer hasn't been here in 3 years. As
Yeah.
the service manager, I should be out there. I should be greeting them, or at least
Yep.
giving them to my best advisor. And hey, where you been?
Yeah.
We're thrilled to have you back.
Hmm.
Hey, did we screw up?
Right.
Is there something we did wrong?
Yeah.
Why haven't we seen you? Our prices are better. We offer mobile service. We'll pick up your car.
Hmm.
Don't tell me it's convenience and don't tell me it's price.
Right.
If it's something other than that, I'm responsible, right? As the service manager. And I think just having that conversation with them is enlightening.
Yeah.
And I really wish I could just talk to all these service managers and be like, you could be making so much more money, assuming their pay plan's tied to some kind of gross profit number.
Hmm.
They absolutely should be focused on that.
Yeah. I think most service managers are number one afraid to have that conversation in the drive with the customer, right? They're afraid to open that can of worms.
Not
But
my service managers. They love talking to our customers.
that's listen. I used to tell a customer that I would much rather have you tell me why you're unhappy than to just walk away and disappear, because
Silence is a
I
killer.
can't fix that.
Silence is a killer. 100%.
Yep.
Don't tell me. I always tell this to my team internally here at BizzyCar is I need the bad news first. Don't bury the lead. I
Yeah.
can't fix it
Right.
if I don't know about it. And
Hmm.
customers will just ghost you. I mean, they'll disappear.
Yep.
So yeah, I love it. Great advice, Dave.
Yeah. All right. Last question. Are there any upcoming features or expansions that you're excited about and can share with the audience?
Yeah. So number one thing I'll talk about today is missed opportunities. So I don't know if I didn't know what this was a year
Hmm.
ago. So for those who don't know, a missed opportunity is a customer that comes into your store with a recall and leaves your store still having that recall on their vehicle, right? So we didn't fix it.
Yep.
That should never happen, right?
Right.
As long as there's a remedy available and parts are available at the OEM,
Yes.
you should never, ever have that happen. Your missed opportunities percentage should be 0.
Yep.
The reason why it happens is the BDC or the service advisor, they run out of time. They don't call the customer a day in advance. And so the customer is coming in for an oil change,
Hmm.
right? That takes a half hour. Maybe it's 6/10 or whatever. Lube oil filter, something. They're coming in for an hour, expecting an hour.
Yep.
And then the service advisor meets them and goes, "Oh, Dave, your 2023 F-150 has a recall." What's the first thing they ask?
How much
Not how
time is
much
that
it's
going
going
to
to cost.
take?
What's that?
How much time is it going to take?
How long is it going to take? And it's like clockwork. And I mean, we have some OEMs we work with where 65, 70%, 60% of those customers decline. This is a safety recall, right?
Yeah.
Because you didn't
It's
manage their expectations properly.
yeah. And it's a liability issue for that dealership, allowing that to drive back out.
Some of these recalls, we are like, we are literally getting the customer to sign a piece of
So,
paper. Yeah.
yes. Yep.
So it's crazy. So what we have done is we have solved this problem. And this product is in beta right now, though we have some really big publicly traded launch customers that have been launched on us a couple months ago. So this will be a huge element of what we're releasing here in about Jan 1 of this year of 2025, so about 8 weeks.
Yep.
But if you're interested in the beta, we're happy to have that conversation with you today. It's basically eliminating missed opportunities, and it's a combination of checking, integrations, all the things we've talked about today,
Hmm.
but it's on autopilot. Your missed opportunities percentage should be 0. You should
Right.
never have it happen. And
Hmm.
we have built a solution that makes that a reality.
That's awesome. I love it. Ryan, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, so we're at BizzyCar.com. That's BIZZYCAR.com. We love getting inbound questions or comments from that. We're always available at hello@BizzyCar.com, HELLO@BizzyCar.com. And then we love doing podcasts and stuff like this. You can find me online. I'm on LinkedIn. I got a pretty prolific following, so would love to chat with you. We love chatting with OEMs. We love talking to customers. We have consumers that reach out to us, believe it or not,
That's awesome.
asking about. Yeah, it's not a couple a day. It's not like we're getting thousands, but
Yeah.
they really just want to get their recalls completed. Those are great. We love sending those leads over to the dealers.
Yeah. That's excellent. Well, Ryan, grateful for your time today. And we were happy to learn about the solution and such an important part of the industry that needs to be done. Some of them aren't safety, but a lot of them are safety issues. And it's not just the person driving that car; it's the other people around them on the road that need them to get their recalls taken care of. Right. So
100%. We're mission driven. Until all safety recalls are completed, our team will be here to do it. And really appreciate you having us on today.
awesome. Thank you for your time. To everybody else, we will see you next week.